I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man Ant Walker here with the second installment of the Living Death Show. Of course, you know these two guys that are beside me. They're beside me every week. Happy to have them. You're happy to watch them. You're happy to listen to them. Let's go ahead and introduce them, despite the fact they don't need any introduction because we love them so much. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, and the homie Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing really well. We're back in business. UFC's back in action this week. Invicta's in action this week. One championship. Vacation's over, for my fellas.
All right, it is time to get to work. And of course, the man with the stats, the facts, and the figures and the numbers who anchors the panel every single week, the associate editor of Sherdog.com, and my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. What's up, Jay?
I feel like I could have used another week for vacation for like not having events, but at the same time, what Aunt you and I were just talking about a minute ago, about how it's that anticipation, that excitement, that here we go, it's fight time again, and we got some good fights ahead. The this weekend's fight card, I mean, it's not the best in the world. I know we're going to talk about it later. But there's something I wanted to mention, if it's okay with you guys, about something I talked about last week, about Ryzen 33 in particular. And that'll be my stat of the week is 2:16, 2 minutes 16 seconds, which is the finish time where one Shibatar hit a flying armbar on Yuta Kubo in a weird bizarro custom rules exhibition match. And it's kind of one of the reasons why I was ho hum about Ryzen 33, because I was very negative Nancy, but I didn't really back up why. And there were a lot of issues I found about the broadcast. Like, for instance, the commentary team. I like Joe Ferraro. Damian Brown's, he's knowledgeable, but he's not very enthusiastic. So you're like kind of a ho hum. But the problem with the commentary team is when the commentary team is behind the action, it is a delayed response between a big right hand lands and then 1,000, 1,000. Oh, it's hard to listen to that kind of action when even the live commentary isn't live. And then when they brought a third person to the booth, when they brought Johnny Case, it was just, how the Joe Rogan fight companion shows back when they were actually kind of interesting to listen to, they had like four guys on and they were all talking at the same time and you couldn't hear anything. That was like that for a good part of the main card, which is too bad because I wanted to hear, insight and not two people speaking and talking to each other and then awkward silences and everything like that. So that was kind of squidgy. The broadcast was tough. A lot of fights to me didn't really matter, and I don't mean that from like a ranking standpoint. I mean from like an actual professional standpoint, like mixed rules fights. Like the first fight in the card was a whole brand new creation called like Ryzen Challenge, and it was like 3-minute rounds, MMA, no kicks to grounded opponents or elbows or some other modified things like that, just because they're getting weird. And then the other exhibitions like Tenshin Nasukawa phoning it in against Takanori Gomi, and then the stat of the week, which is 2:16, which was Shibatar, who is kind of a YouTube, I don't want to call him sensation, but he's got 1 million subscribers, so I guess that means something on YouTube. And it wasn't just the fact that the walkouts were horrific and that Yuta Kubo had his girlfriend sing her pop song and she cannot carry a tune at all. It was, you'll have to hear it. It was not good. And it was the second time she had sung it live and it was not pleasant. And he came out singing, Shibatar came out singing his own song. But the reason why it's a problem is because it was a fixed fight. Gentlemen, 2021 ended with an actual live, real, tried and true fixed fight. And why do I say that? It's no allegations. This is all public information now. According to Kubo himself, Shibatar and Kubo had many conversations behind the scenes agreeing to go easy in certain part of the fight go easy in the first round, start fighting in the second round, allowing for sponsors or whatever, something like that, to agree to a certain kind of fight. So a prearranged outcome had basically happened, whoever won, whatever. And then Shibatar decided to jump for a flying armbar, and his corner threw in the towel because they're like, what is happening here? So it's all out and public, and Shibatar kind of said something along the lines of, I have a developmental disorder, and so therefore I'm not quite on the level. And it was just a whole bunch of controversy and mess over a fight that I actually had said to one of our Fight Finder contributors before the event was already meaningless, and we're not adding it to Fight Finder. It turns out it was an actual fixed fight. So, gentlemen, I had to take a couple minutes to talk about my concerns about Ryzen. If you have any thoughts, please jump in. But yeah, there's a video that Kubo is on his knees apologizing and laying out exactly their conversations. The text messages came out, were translated, and this is a documented fixed fight. So that happened. Any thoughts?
I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. I mean, the dawn of like Japanese mixed martial arts was fixed fights. You know, it was fixed fights, and it was Gracie's beating up Japanese pro wrestlers. We're out of the Gracie's beating up Japanese pro wrestler stage, but apparently some habits die hard. My questions at this point is, it goes from meaningless to meaning something if there were betting odds for this fight.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about last week how this was one of the rare times that Ryzen had live odds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if that was included, I mean, there's some splaining to do here.
Yep.
I'm looking as we speak, which is why I'm not saying anything.
But I mean, if you're gonna fix a fight, at least it's one of the ones that didn't matter anyway. I guess.
I don't have an international line on here, but that doesn't mean that there weren't lines on the fight at all.
And at this point, if you're betting on mixed rule, like some odd rules on a show that annually provides its fair deal of spectacle and sport adjacent content, you're kind of stupid at this point. Like, you're not a very smart person if you're betting on the New Year's Eve Japanese MMA show, because something strange is going to happen. There's going to be some sort of trickery going on. Yeah, just don't do it.
It means you have a problem. It's the betting equivalent of like digging for crack rocks in like the cushions of your couch.
Yeah, betting on the Pro Bowl or something. Like, come on, bro. Like, what are we doing?
Betting on UFC prelims.
Yeah, like you're on Facebook with your credit card out watching PFL. Like, why are we doing this?
Anyway,
what a hell of a way to end 2021.
I felt like I needed to kind of drop that on the table here and get us started with a positive topic about it's almost exciting, because we've always heard rumors, stories. Mark Coleman was very public about it for a very short window of time, probably before lawyers started hitting him with sticks or something like that. But there was we had mostly been whispers and behind the scenes, and we'd all heard things. I mean, we know people who were there, but to see it unfolding like the UFC fight between Bang and Kuntz, where that was a fight that was fixed in the UFC. That was a whole mess too. It was almost like a surge of adrenaline for me to be like, oh my God, the worst fight in the card that was so dumb and meaningless was actually fixed.
Yeah, like, why?
Whatever the opposite of a chef's kiss was that. Like a kiss on the backside, I don't know.
Like Gordon Ramsay cursing you out or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? That's ridiculous. But I mean, let's slow clap for that one. Let's just.
It's no transition from that.
I know there's no transition. There's no transition. So let's just jump into it, because there was this brief moment of excitement for a lot of people late last week, I believe it was, when it was announced that Max Holloway was going to have his next crack at the featherweight title against Alexander Volkanovski, making their trilogy fight, and people were excited. And hey, despite the fact we've seen this fight twice very recently, hey, we wouldn't mind a third because the first two were so good. Well, grand opening, grand closing. No sooner did that announcement get made, did Max Holloway announce that he was being forced to pull out due to injury, some nagging injury that he aggravated. And now Volkanovski is officially without an opponent. The talk we're hearing, I first saw this being tweeted by Ariel Helwani, that the Korean Zombie was the front runner to replace Max Holloway. Fellas, is that the right move? And if not, who would you put in the place of the Blessed One?
I mean, I think it's either got to be him or Yair Rodriguez. I mean, unless they're going to like pull Henry Cejudo out of a very small hat and, throw him in there. I mean, he keeps threatening,
This small hat, though. All right.
He's been, I think Cejudo's been
sombrero.
So a big hat then. Large enough to be able to hold that.
No, like a little Chihuahua size one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I don't know if Cejudo's in the USADA testing pool though, and I don't think he's the Brock Lesnar type to get an exemption a month before the fight or 2 months before the fight. Although
hopefully no one ever gets one of those again.
Yeah.
At the same time,
look what Lesnar did with it.
Since Lesnar showed why that's a bad idea.
Yeah, but it showed why it was a good idea for the UFC when those receipts came back. See, I don't think they really give a damn, and it's just about whether or not they can get that guaranteed check from ESPN by putting a body in that place. So I don't think that'll be a deal breaker for Cejudo, because they could just write that exemption and look the other way and just ignore the cries and pleas of people like us. So that is inconsequential. I do think Korean Zombie will be my front runner for this, because damn, he's a Korean Zombie. Like I don't see how you root against that man. I don't see how you can be upset about his presence at all. And he's a fantastic fighter. I would say, though, that I'm surprised that, well, maybe this is why this hasn't been made official, because this weekend we've got Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. I think if Chikadze gets that win against Calvin Kattar, man, that sounds like a great setup for a title fight. And this is obviously somebody that they want to fast track. So that's probably the direction they're going to go in if Giga comes out with his hand raised. Correct me if I'm wrong, fellas.
I see so many. I see that backfiring so badly. Like, imagine he's kicking Calvin Kattar's legs, and Calvin Kattar, as we know, is made of stones. I think Max Holloway hit him 400 times. Hit him, I believe, off the top of my head, 290 times in the head. So imagine Giga's just wailing away on Kattar. Kattar's not going anywhere, and he breaks a hand, breaks a foot, hurts a toe. Boom, you're pushed off for a month, you're pushed off for 2 months. So my concern, I mean, I hope we talk about this when we talk about the event itself. It just, I feel like you're setting yourself up for failure by banking on one fighter to win, be healthy, and go on. That's just so many if-thens. I don't really want to see Korean Zombie in the title fight if he's the next guy, because I still have the Ortega fight so fresh in my memory. When Korean Zombie was just completely stifled by Ortega. The one guy I'd rather see, and I don't know if he'd be a popular option, but he also has a win over the guy that Korean Zombie just beat, is Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett's on a 4-fight win streak. A couple of respectable names in the division. I mean, very respectable in Ige and Shane Burgos. He knocked out Mirsad Bektik, and I think, what was it, like Michael Johnson tripped and fell at featherweight or something like that. So it's, that's not a horrible lineup, and it's a 4-fight win streak, a fresh matchup, all these kinds of things. I mean, Korean Zombie would jump at the opportunity, and now he's a BJJ black belt because of that, the Ige fight. I remember that may give me a good laugh. I know they're going to, if they have the choice, they're going to put in Korean Zombie. He's a bigger name, bigger ticket. I mean, you're saying it right on the money, that it's the, they're going to, that would get the receipts. That would get people to go, oh yeah, Korean Zombie, that guy, he had a crazy fight 10 years ago against that Garcia guy. Oh yeah, that was fun. And and he's still riding on the momentum, whereas Emmett's just the big guy with big heavy hands. But I'd love to see. I don't know. It's hard to see what they do with the division because there's just a lot of guys on the top that have lost to Volkanovski. So, Holloway, obviously he's out. Ortega, I don't want to see him fight Volkanovski again. Yair just lost to Max. Korean Zombie's next in line, so probably. And then Cater's fighting Chikadze and then Josh Emmett. So, yeah, I guess give me Emmett, but my brain is saying Korean Zombie.
I mean, let's also keep in mind that Corey Sandhagen just got a title shot off of a loss to TJ Dillashaw. So this is an age where having Jose Aldo got a title fight off of a close loss to Marlon Moraes. Like
Yoel Romero lost like 6 fights in a row and then got a title fight.
Yeah, like so this is a UFC where you don't necessarily have to win to get a title shot. You just have to look good in your last performance. Like that's really the baseline level. So Yair Rodriguez could very well slip into this spot. You think of how exciting his style is. You don't have a tough time selling that fight. I still say it should be Korean Zombie. I have a feeling though that depending on what Giga does, it's going to be him. So, but either way, I am, as much as I would like to see for entertainment purposes, the trilogy between Volkanovski and Holloway, I'm kind of happy that's not happening right now because the UFC continually rushes trilogies. Let it breathe a little bit. The wins that Holloway has gotten since his last title shot have been very meaningful. The Cater win was very meaningful. The Yair Rodriguez win was very meaningful. Let him keep doing that if that's what he does. Let him keep doing that. Let Volkanovski establish his own championship legacy as he did against Brian Ortega. Until it is forced, until there is no other option. So this might be the best case scenario for the division because we're going to have some forward movement regardless.
Can I have a very hypothetical match making the lineup for you guys real quick?
Absolutely, please. I love it.
Okay. Volkanovski fight Emmett. This is my idea. Holloway, Ortega, do the rematch, 5 rounds, fight night, some big thing like that. Give them that rematch because they're so close, even though they don't deserve it. They're so close to a title shot. At least eliminate one so you can keep the division kind of a little fresher. And then you have the winner of Emmett Chikadze. So say Giga wins, fight Korean Zombie, and the loser fight Calvin Kattar will fight. If Calvin Kattar loses to Giga Chikadze, Yair Rodriguez. So you have losers fight losers, winners fight winners, Holloway Ortega. You got a fresh title fight, and then the dust settles, and then you have something to work with. I'm just spitballing here.
I'm not mad at that.
That was a lot. I know. It was a whole lot at once.
There one or two that I'll switch around, but we've said this many times on this show or the previous show that we did, whatever you want to say. The combination of us three have said this several times over, that you can mix and match anybody at the top of the featherweight division and you will be more than happy with the results as far as your entertainment is concerned. So all of those scenarios sound fantastic. I'm just happy to see the division moving beyond the matchup that we just saw twice. I'm very happy to see that. Well, not that I'm happy Max is injured, of course.
So that's really funny you say that because there was a little bit of relief. Like, okay, we're gonna finally take a minute and be like, okay, we don't have to hurry this trilogy because if Max loses to Volkanovski again,
then what?
Do
you force him up to like he's forced up to lightweight at that point?
Exactly.
You trade him for AJ McKee.
That's not crazy idea.
That's not a wild idea at all. Like that, I love that idea.
Because Bellator goes to Hawaii and UFC doesn't. Oh my God, Duffy.
God damn, this man's a genius.
Because Julia Budd's no longer with Bellator, so you don't have that family weirdness about McKee moving on. Ooh, boy, I like it.
Yeah, I like this Duffy guy. We got to keep him around.
Let's bring him back next week.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're invited back next week then.
Let me check my calendar.
All right, fellas. So now let's move on a little bit here. We're gonna obviously talk a little bit more about the UFC featherweight division as we do a quick preview of the return to UFC action after the holiday break. Now, probably in my opinion, the biggest news that has emerged in this new year so far in the combat space is ESPN is raising the price of UFC pay-per-views yet again. We will go from $69.99 to $74.99. This is after the increase from last year from $64.99 to $69.99. So $5 jump each year looks like. How does this make you feel, guys?
It's not. There's one thing I can really say with comfort, that it isn't actually the UFC's doing. And it sounds really weird to say, but it's not, because the only pay-per-view prices that I've seen that are going up on ESPN Plus. So it isn't going up on Fight Pass through, like, because Canadians will buy it through Fight Pass, and other countries like that. Other, like in Britain, has the Sky Sports and all those different. So it, from what I've been reading, it's only an American ESPN Plus hike. And also, I should add that I believe a little bit earlier in 2021, the ESPN Plus rate also went up. So it's $75.99 or $74.99 to buy the pay-per-view, plus an increased monthly rate to be able to get onto the first place. So essentially it's like an $81, $82 pay-per-view now. I got to think we're going to be running out of rope here. I have to think that a monthly pay-per-view that's that much is just too hard to sell, because you picture like the big blockbuster boxing pay-per-views, the big names, the Mayweather, because he still does that apparently. I guess Canelo can ask that much. Not too many other guys, maybe Joshua and Fury. But there aren't not a lot of names that are going to ask that much for this. And the UFC is going to pull that for every pay-per-view. Even a fight card headlined by Valentina Shevchenko, is that an $82 pay-per-view plus tax? It's just a hard sell. And every price increase, it's just, I feel like the diminishing returns is such that more people will be turned off than the additional $5 you'll be gaining from the price increase. I don't know if the economics hold up. I don't have the UFC numbers, but just it's a level of diminishing returns where the more you go up, the more people, the fewer people are going to buy, because it's just, you're pricing yourself out of the market. So I think this round 75 is going to turn a lot of people off more than you think.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent too much time on Twitter over the weeks off, and so I understand that there is no depth to which like weird UFC stands on Twitter will sink to like defend the company's every move. But in this case, as Jay points out, this isn't the UFC move. This, I mean, other than the move, to get in bed with ESPN,
Sure.
and, now it's just not up to them anymore. I agree with Jay. Like, there's got to be a point of diminishing returns. I'll tell you guys something weird about me. Like, I've been a fan of mixed martial arts since about 2003. I have never illegally streamed a show that I could pay for. Like, back in the early to mid 2000s, I streamed like some Asian events that like you couldn't get legally in the US live. So I'm, watching like shitty, like streamed video that was probably somebody just pointing a camera at their
Preach.
like, yeah. But, like I've never streamed a UFC. I've never, streamed a boxing card. If I weren't doing this professionally, didn't have to watch all these and couldn't, expense the pay-per-view, I think I'd probably just kind of go back to being the guy I was in about 2014, where I just simply didn't watch every pay-per-view live. I just had to pick and choose. Like, I didn't want to be into this for $800 a year. I think that's kind of where I'd be at. Like I'd be like, is this a must-watch card?
Yeah, man. Ben, I'm very glad that you mentioned like the ability to have an expense account pay for these pay-per-views. So I obviously no longer on SureDog staff. When I was on SureDog staff, that's about when at least when I can remember, the pay-per-views started becoming a real financial restriction, where it's like, man, I'm not making that much money right now. Oh, it's going to be difficult to shell this out. And there were a few times where it was a struggle in my household. Like I'm like, well, I got to watch this work. At least I'll get reimbursed, and the only reason why I'm able to watch this legally is because I know I'm going to get reimbursed, and just imagining the MMA fans out there who don't have that corporate expense account that's going to pay them back or put the cost up front for pay-per-view, and they just want to follow the sport.
And in the COVID era, being able to go to the local Wings and
Exactly.
Boobs isn't
It's
always,
Yep.
you
Yes.
know,
Not the
feasible.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or having 6 people over and having
Yeah.
everybody have you $10.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, they've really picked a terrible time to to sort of try to squeeze everyone's pockets. There's enough economic hardship out here, COVID related. There's the COVID has changed the dynamics of how we watch fights, and the quality of illegal streams are better than they've ever been.
Mm.
I mean, do they want to roll out the red carpet for the pirate streams? Because that's what's going to happen. The technology of the criminals is always ahead of everyone else. So this is just an opportunity for more pirating. It's that simple.
Did the news of this strike you differently, given Endeavor's big shouting for the rooftops that the UFC has had its best 3-quarter run in the history of the company, and we're rolling in the dough. We've made more money than ever before in 2021. Does that kind of ring funny for you, knowing they're raising the prices right after saying this is the best we've ever been?
Yeah, I bet maybe not in a special way, because it's always kind of rubbed me wrong as we've as I've gotten like kind of more into this sport.
Yeah.
and seen more of the inner workings, that it's like, oh, that's pretty cruddy. Yeah, man, it's wild, because at the same time they're saying they're going to one of the Endeavor higher ups was talking about how there's still space in the octagon that they can sell for ads.
Yes.
Like, you've got fighters slipping on logos. They're not allowed to.
Crypto.com.
Yeah, they are allowed to create their own deals with Crypto.com, but they don't see a penny off of that. By the way, has any fighter had a Crypto.com deal individually yet?
I don't believe so yet.
Exactly. So you've got a scenario where the UFC has, or Endeavor, whoever you want to point the finger at, has created as much revenue and squeezed every single penny they can. So there's going to be logos plastered all over the octagon. Probably it's going to start looking ridiculous if it doesn't already look ridiculous to you.
Have you guys seen the picture from the 10 years ago of the pictures of the flat octagon with the logos from 10 years ago and the logos now? Oh my gosh. It looks like a NASCAR race out there.
Yeah. And that was the exact look that was told to fighters, that we don't want that because
Yes!
that's not professional.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That was something that I remember, that it was the big cry about, we don't want you to have the stuff on you and your shirts and your condom depots,
because it's just
and
too
your
busy.
wipes and your dynamic fasteners. We don't want to have that. We don't want, it doesn't look professional to have logos slapped on everywhere, every which way. And now
the octagon is plastered with
what logos. I say, not what I do.
I mean, so when the UFC announces the official corn nuts of the brand, yeah, and then it's going to be the official back scratcher, the official underwear elastic. It's getting to a point. Yeah, it's so stupid. And the fighters are excluded from it. And maybe this, and while this may not be the UFC's doing, I mean, this is the climate they've created. So when people point fingers back at the UFC, they only have themselves to blame, because this is the culture that they have created. This is the environment that they have fostered. And I'll tell you what, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, man, what is it going to take for these fighters to band together and say, the hell with this? I thought it was going to be UFC 232. I thought that was going to be the breaking point. You would think the USADA deal with the tracking and all that, you think the $4.2 billion sale would have something to do with it. You would think that the ridiculous broadcast deals, especially the one they signed with ESPN, would have something to do with it. You think the Crypto.com deal would have something to do with it. However, nothing is ever done. And this will just be a whimper. in the dust later on, and there'll be some fighter who's caping for Dana, who's gonna defend the UFC. Um, yeah, man, it's trash.
Oh, well, I mean, this week it's Sean O'Malley, who a couple months ago was complaining he didn't get paid enough, and now is like, I get paid plenty, and anyone saying otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, he's underpaid still, but it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? What
Well,
are
he's
we
paid
doing?
the same he was.
Yeah.
He just changed what he said about it.
And he probably got talked to behind the scenes, and then he changed his
Yeah.
tune.
Yeah. So I mean, this at this point
No.
is par for the course, and even if it's UFC's fault, they have created this sort of climate. You know, it's almost like a mirror image of Reebok and the UFC. Like Reebok took so much backlash. It wasn't their fault the way the UFC distributed a lot of stuff, but hey, you get in bed with a company who has a particular track record, you are going to fall victim to their PR nightmares as well. So it is what it is, man. All right, fellas. So let's keep things pushing here because we do need to talk about um, a few topics that fall under the category of the greatest titled segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share things that surprised us or ironically did not since we last met. Ben, I will begin with you. What is your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, I'm sure there's one that we're all like just jumping to talk about, so I won't grab that one. I'll grab a different one from last week because I actually was surprised considering that Dylan Dennis at this point, I mean, he's not an MMA fighter. He's not even really a competitive grappler anymore. I mean, he is basically a social media personality. Like that's what he does now. Uh, you would think a guy in that position with, about 250,000 followers on Twitter would be more savvy and not fuck with the wrong one. But he made the horrible mistake of going at the 2022 version of Ariel Helwani. And I mean, he got his ass handed to him so hard that, I mean, he must need a snorkel to breathe. Like, Ariel like made origami out of this man in a chain of about 4 tweets, just pointing out all the patently obvious, ridiculous things about Dennis. Because Dennis, of course, has been lobbying to get a paycheck fight with someone like Jake Paul, and said, if he knocks me out, I'll retire. And Helwani said, retire from what? You don't fight already. Destroyed him for the thing that he'll do, about once a month, where it's like, follow me, I'll follow you back, and I'll give one guy that follows me tonight $1,000. And like, dude, this is pitiful. So yeah, I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but like, it's different Helwani. It's dark Helwani. So just watch what you're doing. I find him far more entertaining right now. Like it's good stuff. Don't Dylan Dennis, don't do that. Don't do that again.
If you are challenging this vigilante version of Ariel, you are a nut job and a half. Like, do not do it. This guy is savage right now. He is a stone cold killer at this moment, and I love it. I'm gonna pose a question to you that I threw out there on Twitter, and I want to get your piece on it. Who gave Dylan Dennis the worst beatdown? Was it Ariel or was it that guy at the bar?
No, I saw that. And I'm going to say it was Ariel because, like I said, Dylan Dennis isn't a fighter anymore. He's a talker and a social media guy. So Helwani beat him in his wheelhouse in front of more people.
So it's like the John Jones approach, and I'm going to beat you at your best, what you're best at.
Yeah.
Versus the bouncer guy, was the bouncer or the police officer that just so easily grabbed a rear naked choke on this guy, the renowned grappler,
choked him out on the floor. Yeah, and then also I guess now since Ariel, I think Twitter agreed that Ariel gave him the worst beatdown. Now, was that a worse beatdown that Khabib gave him at UFC 229?
Khabib came out of the cage having thoroughly thrashed somebody and said, "I'm not done yet. I have more trash to take out tonight," and jumped out of the cage and eagled and jumped and drilled this guy in the head.
And it's terrible,
Oh,
and
man.
it's a bad look for the sport and a true black eye. And damn, if it wasn't really funny.
It was really entertaining to
It's
be
like-
there that day.
It was very entertaining. Bad for the
Like a
sport, but very
split
entertaining.
decision.
Terrible,
right
terrible,
here.
bad fighters.
No.
Shame on you.
Don't do that.
That was really cool.
Well,
Don't do that again.
I mean,
We'll put it in
I'm
the
loath
commercial.
I'm loath to blame the victim here, but it's not like he jumped out of the cage and like punched Roxanne Modafferi or something.
Well,
He
went after
punched the
guy
most
chirping at
askinest
him.
for it dude. You know.
Hey man,
I mean, it'd be one thing if he like punched a nice guy, but
Yeah.
you know.
if he hit like Dean Thomas or something, like, hey, what the
Yeah,
hell,
yeah.
man?
There you go. Like not
Yes.
like bringing like the hitting
Yes.
a woman thing completely out of it. Like if he jumps
Yeah.
out and like starts wailing on Stephen Thompson or something.
Yeah.
Like, what did he
Yeah.
do?
doing,
Yeah,
man?
exactly.
Did he scratch your car with the church bus and like the parking lot? Like what happened?
It's the kind of to smacking where you go, yeah.
Like,
Like there's no, you shouldn't have done that. What do you? It was I'm surprised it took somebody so long to do that.
Like, I'll allow it.
Yeah,
You just kinda-
right. Yeah, exactly. Like the celebrity death match. I'll allow it.
Oh man. All right. So Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
So I guess in keeping with the theme of weird social media, I'm going to go with a fight that was broken on Monday. So this is a brand spanking new development. So the world's weird. 2022 is already really weird. Rest in peace, Bob Saget. Things are going crazy. Everything is a mess. And fighters are breaking news of their own new fights on OnlyFans, on their OnlyFans account. And the person that broke the news of this fight was Kevin Holland. Because Kevin Holland,
not the name I was expecting you to say.
because Kevin Holland has an OnlyFans page that you can subscribe to. Apparently, it's free, so you don't have to put your credit card. I don't actually know how it works, but it says free on it. Where he announced the news of his next fight that he's moving down to 170 pounds to fight Cowboy Oliveira. Now, I'm just saying that's an awesome fight, but a fighter broke news of his own next fight on his OnlyFans page. That's a sentence I never would have thought I would say as a guy who covers news in the sport on a weekly
I would
basis.
never have expected you to say it without the name Cindy Dandois in there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but like there's a few names that go, okay, I could see Jessica
Yeah.
I deciding to release a special with her foot video or whatever. But dude, Kevin Holland has an OnlyFans page and broke news of the story that he's fighting on March 5th at UFC 273.
Oh wow.
Carry on, Ant.
So the fight itself, okay, Kevin Holland versus Cowboy Oliveira, I'll take it. That's a fantastic way for Kevin Holland to be introduced to the welterweight division. I expect that fight to be chaotic and devoid of any sort of real fight IQ. So it sounds like a great time for all involved. But I'm terrified of the idea of a Kevin Holland. Oh, my daughter just hit mute. All right. I'm terrified of the idea of a Kevin Holland OnlyFans page. Like, if it's Rachel Osovich, you know exactly what she's going to do. If it's Jessica, you know it's the feet. You know, if it's like Michael Chandler, you know it's just simply him trying to get on some social media and you know showcase his brand a little more. So you kind of know what it is. Kevin Holland is unpredictable enough to where it just might be fight announcements, it might be training videos, and then all of a sudden he'll just whip it out. Like that's the sort of person that he seems like he is. Hard pass on that, and hard is not a word that I intended to use there. So, pause.
Yeah, so
Hard pass.
I'm not surprised, Mr.
Just
Falcons.
pass, automatic
Pass.
pass, no matter
Pass.
what.
Pass. Yeah. Good Lord, that is really disturbing. So I guess I'll move on to my own, I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment, and this is the one that we all kind of wanted a piece of. So don't be surprised if this leads into just a little bit here. Recently retired former Strikeforce champion and UFC top contender Jacare Souza has announced that he has received a proposal to fight in boxing, and he has taken it. The jiu-jitsu standout has decided that with a diminished chin has decided that boxing is the way to go, and he is going to embark on a professional boxing career. Why? Yet I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons.
I thought I had more to say about this fight when I was thinking about it for a possible I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons segment, but I guess there's more money in boxing than there is in grappling. Obviously, well, that's on. I guess I know that to be a fact. But why does it seem to be the chinnier, aging grapplers that are going into boxing? It's not. I mean, there's so few good, great strikers. You'd be like, okay, I can see that. Like, why didn't I don't know Roy Nelson? Why isn't he boxing? Like, I don't know Bellator is going to give him another fight because he's on a losing streak. He's still got a chin, and he still can throw bombs. Okay, he's 45. I don't know how old he is, but he's actually still working like a maniac. I see training videos of him and Francis Ngannou, and they're banging. Okay, let's strike that from the record because of the last I'm not surprised segment. It's why is it the guy who's like, yeah, I'm a grappler? I mean, it'd be like if Honey Yaya or Damian Maia would be like, yeah, I'm going to throw down with boxing gloves on. What?
Well, except that Maya and Yaya haven't been starched like 5 or 6 times in the last couple of years.
I suppose, but it's still to the level of you are doing that.
Yeah, you know what?
Now
it seems so crazy to me, man. Like the way I'm just gonna make some direct quotes here, so I don't mess up anything here. He says, and this is an interview that was given to your beloved Sherdog.com. Actually, he says, even though I came from jiu-jitsu, I've always loved boxing, and if you see my MMA fights, I've always had strong hands. Now, while Jacare certainly was not a poor striker by any means, like he was more than competent on the feet in MMA. But you look at the wins that he has as far as like his knockout wins. So I'm just going to read off a couple of the names here, at least, aside from like his jungle fight days, which, we don't know who those people are. But oh, my daughter's biting the hell out of my thumb right now. Good Lord. Derek Brunson KO'd him in Strikeforce. Yoshin Okami KO'd him UFC Fight Night. Derek Brunson again. Vitor Belfort and Chris Weidman. Now, Chris Weidman, Derek Brunson, Yoshin Okami, grapplers. These are not guys who are known for their striking prowess at all. That he managed to KO on the feet here. Vitor Belfort, remarkably chinny, remarkably what's the right, like paper tiger, like the definition of a paper tiger or a glass cannon. Yeah. So you knocked out Vitor Belfort, especially that version of Vitor Belfort.
Hold on, the Vitor win was, I believe, he took him down in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That was
all ground and pound.
Yeah, that was ground and pound. So that didn't even count. What Jacare's recollection of his striking during his MMA days is grossly flawed here. At least when you're talking about going into a boxing match. Like obviously, Anderson Silva has had his success in boxing so far. But you look at his highlight reel as an MMA fighter and you think, okay, that's a guy with hands. That's a guy who truly understands a lot of the striking, and perhaps that can translate over into pure striking. That's not what you see from Jacare.
And I think Elias absolutely right in that, like, even in the Weidman fight, a very shot version of Chris Weidman was tuning Jacare up until he got caught.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh yeah.
Like, you preach it, Elia.
Yeah, I do remember very specifically tweeting during that fight that, man, like, I don't remember Weidman's hands looking this crisp. And then his chin just gave out before Jacare's in that fight. So the mindset to pursue boxing at this point just seems insane to me, aside from the fact that you need a paycheck. So
yep.
I mean I definitely wish Jacare the best. I certainly hope he has a successful foray into boxing, and that leads to whatever money he needs. And this is the same Jacare who right at the start of COVID, when the UFC had to quarantine everybody at the hotel in Jacksonville and all that. And he was like the first positive case,
Yep.
I believe, on the roster, that he said very clearly he needed to be in this fight so he could pay his mortgage. Like he would lose his house if he could not make this fight. So the fact that he is looking toward a boxing career right now, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. Pretty sad to see a legend going out this way.
There's only one possible positive that could come from this. Let's see Anderson Silva versus Jacare Sosa boxing.
Yeesh. I mean,
The way Silva's looked lately, he'd probably tune him up, but I don't
Yeah.
know what Sousa looks like in the ring. I just
yeah,
I like the it's a theory. If we're going to doom these MMA fighters to post MMA ill-advised boxing careers, let's at least make the senior circuit out of it.
give him Tito
Let's give him Vitor again.
or Vitor again. Yeah.
And that's the one concerning thing, and I know we're trying to move on, is that from the look of the article, he's not talking about like some bare knuckle one-off thing.
No.
And that would almost be better, because if he goes to boxing, he's probably going to fight a real boxer, even a faded real boxer. So
Yeah. It's not a
yeah.
good look, man.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. Well, we do want to tie that ribbon around 2021 a little tighter. So last week we said, hey, we got some more categories we want to talk about, but for time's sake, we decided to table them until today. So let's go ahead, sit at that table, and get to discussing here. So, first up on the award show for the day, the Lee Murray Award, the biggest robbery of 2021. Jay, actually Ben first. If you have a list of possible contenders at the ready.
I have that. Give me just a moment here.
Okay. Because I really can only think of one. There's only one that stands out to me.
I mean, it was an easy one for me as well, but
It was like a 1-2 for me personally. Like a
Okay.
1A,
we had-
1B.
JJ Aldrich over Courtney Casey, Dan Moret over Goichi Yamauchi,
That
TJ
was
Brown
that was
over Kai Kamaka, Alicia Zappatella over Jessica Correa Del Boni, and Glyson Tebow over Rory McDonald.
Yeah, Tebow over McDonald was the one for me. That's the one I was like, yeah, that's really, really bad. The only thing I took away from that one was like, well, it's the MMA gods paying Tebow back for robbing him of the Khabib win years back. So that was like the one smile I had from it.
I mean, that's certainly a big one, but for me, it was Zappatella versus Del Boni. It checked all the boxes for like a robbery of the year for me. One, it was a complete robbery. Like Del Boni won at least 4 of 5 rounds, if not all 5. So for Zappatella to get 2 scorecards in her favor is ridiculous. 2, the stakes. It was a title fight in, at worst, the second most prestigious, or for at worst the second most prestigious atomweight belt in the sport. After the Ryzen one. Yeah, like it was a title fight. It was a complete robbery, and yeah, like I mean, for me, it's on a somewhat smaller stage, we think, because Invicta, but it was Invicta's effort on Access TV as well. Like, it was bad. I mean, that's my robbery of the year.
Yeah, I'm going with that one too. Actually, I'm not going with Sherdog's pick was Tebow over McDonald.
No,
I'm
but
going
the
with
Lee Murray Award, like someone's family being held at gunpoint, so you hand over like the safe combination. That's
This was to the point where I was watching the fight live, and there was open scoring in Kansas. This is an open scoring state, so we saw this is why it hurt me more. We saw it playing out round by round. And even the commentary booth, like Megan Anderson was like, I think TJ DeSantis was like, Julie Kedzie was like, I don't know what's happening here. As each round, more and more scores were tallied for, like, Zappatella got the final scores. Zappatella won a split decision, 248-47s, and Del Boni got a 48-47 on the other side. So the judges at least in the two that scored for Zappatella, had the first, second, and fifth rounds for Zappatella. Now Del Boni won the first and the second round, and she won the third and the fourth round. Period. Like basically full stop. Like it was the kind of thing where the only reasonable round I could see for Zappatella was the fifth round, and even then, I don't think so. I can't remember if I scored at 50-45 or 49-46. I wasn't on live scoring at the time for the Invicta card, but at worst, it was 4-1. So to see this, not just see it happen, but see it play out before us and go, oh my God, we're witnessing something horrible is happening. Like we're watching a car crash.
If this thing had happened in the UFC with live scoring, like Dan Hardy would have been over there, like slapping some judge out of his chair.
They would have, seriously, Dana White would have gotten out of his seat and kicked the judges out like he did in Macau, which you can't do that. Anyway, it was just atrociously bad. The level of, yes, T-Bow did not beat Rory McDonald. That was a robbery too. But this was a one-sided win for one fighter in an Invicta title fight, live on Access, on the screen, no question. We know what the scores are and go, oh my God. So we had it kind of percolating, and I was stewing on it, going, how the third round, how on earth is Zappatella up 2 rounds according to 2 judges right now? And it was just that level of atrociousness. And at least they're rematching, but I just still don't feel good about it. It was, I dare say, it was a robbery to the level of Sanchez Pearson. That egregious. Yeah. Oh my God, what is happening?
It's so bad that Chatri tried to overturn it.
I mean, it says something to, like, so I didn't watch that fight live. So to watch it unfold and see the scorecards get posted, and you're like,
in horror.
It's like watching, something bad happening in slow motion, sort of. So that, I'm sure, just adds to the emotion behind it.
Like, I give all the credit in the world to the commentary booth for not freaking out like I would have. Had I been on play-by-play for that, had I been on play-by-play for Sherdog writing it up and having the live scores and saying what they were, I would have probably been freaking out by round 3. You're like, this is insanity. So for TJ and Nick Anderson to keep it together.
Shout out to TJ in particular for not freaking out, because that man can freak out. Like that is a spastic man. So
did you see his recent interview with that nut job on Fight Pass? He didn't freak out. He's keeping it together, man.
Oh wow.
TJ's awesome, man.
He probably collapsed as soon as the camera went off. He just
it was an interview with the Fight Pass czar, and it was just this rude bald guy with a beard who was like giving like one-word answers to when TJ was asking questions. TJ's like, usually there's more of a give and take, a back and forth on this. And the guy was just a total, like, not pleasant person. So even if it was a bit, we're like, but yeah,
shout out to TJ. At least give TJ a can of bulletproof coffee or something?
He ripped on TJ for knowing something about a stat or something cool, like some trivia knowledge that TJ knows, because of course TJ knows it.
Yeah.
And I was like, when TJ said, I'm like, yes, that's a good stat. And the guy was like, yeah, good for you to know that kind of stat. I'm not that kind of, like. So again, shout out to TJ, man.
Oh man, he's keeping it together.
Yeah.
All right, that's what's up. All right, fellas. Let's keep things pushing here, because now it is time for the Pound Behind the Barn Award. This is where we award someone for unleashing the worst beatdown of 2021. Ben, please do the honors and read off some options.
Okay, here are some options for you. There are 2. Max Holloway over Calvin Kattar. Sean O'Malley over Chris Moutinho.
It's got to be Max Holloway over Calvin Kattar, in my opinion. That was historical level of destruction. Like, Max Holloway actually had full conversation with Daniel Cormier about, like, he's responding to the commentary team, talking about his level of boxing. He looks away from Kattar, continues this conversation back and forth with the booth while he's dodging punches and throwing back at. That is the ultimate Matrix beatdown. What we saw Holloway do to Kattar was something that will go down in the history books as one of the worst one-sided wins that has ever happened in combat sports, at least at the highest levels.
I agree with everything you said, and yet I disagree with your pick. I think it's O'Malley over Moutinho, and it's for the exact inverse reason that I thought Zappatello versus Del Boni was the robbery of the year, because this fight didn't mean shit. Moutinho is a guy that they grabbed on short notice. You know, he wasn't even the best bantamweight in CES, like let alone UFC ready. And, you know, they grabbed him while O'Malley is screaming that nobody in the UFC wants to fight him. Meanwhile, half the bantamweights on the roster are like waving their hands frantically like a fifth grader who knows the answer to a question. You know, so they bring this dude in. Moutinho's got neon green hair, which, as we know, is the strongest style. You know, a guarantee of victory, you know, since 2002. And this didn't need to go as long as it did. This thing could have been stopped and should have been stopped anytime after about the 3rd minute of the fight. There was no reason not to throw the towel, because it wasn't like Moutinho was coming forward, but he wasn't throwing any effective offense. There wasn't going to be some, you know, Russo over Duffy, like little, you know, boop out of nowhere that like turns everything on a dime. Like, this fight was a death march, like literally from the opening seconds. It was pointless. It was meaningless. Moutinho was stepping up on short notice, so he was getting the second fight no matter what. It just didn't need to happen. Like, this man got second grade punched out of his skull for no good fucking reason.
I like it. I almost sold me, and because I'm of the camp of the Max Cater as my absolute pound behind the barn.
You're Mr. Statistical Fireworks. You know, Holloway landed 7,000 punches. I know which one's your pick.
When you hit a guy 300 times in the head, like when you, and again, the stats have to flow. When you hit a guy more times in the head than any guy's ever been hit in any fight, or woman, guy or girl, in any fight that's ever happened, that's just you drilling him in the head, not counting kicks and body and anything like that. It's incredible. It actually brought a question though. And it's a question I want to ask you guys, because we already know where I stand. Was Max's win over Cater a bigger beatdown than Max's win over Ortega?
Yes, it was, because Ortega at least had moments. Like Cater
landed like 200 strikes of his own. That's the crazy thing.
I guess,
but still, Ortega seemed to be.
There was not a moment that Cater had any semblance of control in that fight. I will say Ortega had a couple of good shots that he landed to where Max was clearly affected.
Mm-hmm.
Cater, when he landed, it just, Max didn't even blink. He just kept throwing. It was like Max would sacrifice one hit to land 20. So yeah, that was Holloway over Cater all day over Holloway over Ortega. And it's and really, what happened in the O'Malley fight, that was supposed to happen. Like, that was the point.
I think that's why I didn't put it so high.
Yeah,
because Martino was a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, like
he was sacrificed.
He was there. Yeah, he was there simply because you can't sanction a heavy bag to enter the cage.
Well, they did. And I like the kid. I know the kid from regional scene. I'm not personally, but I'm like, oh, okay, that's fun. He's gonna fight O'Malley, but he leads chin first because he's a New England based what do I call him? A nose first,
a Boston style face first striker.
That's exactly what I call him, and that's exactly what he did. And Sean O'Malley did what Sean O'Malley does.
Yeah, man. So yeah, Sean O'Malley doesn't win this award to me, but he wins it for Ben. So
it's okay.
All right. Come here, baby girl. Okay, so now let's move things along here. We're gonna go to the Strategery Award. This is pretty open-ended, fellas. So the single worst decision of 2021, and there's a lot to pick from here. So this could be in the cage, out the cage, social media, interviews, anything involving this so-called sport that we have foolishly involved ourselves with.
That's like 100.
Jay, I'm going to begin with you this time.
Okay.
What wins your Strategery Award?
This was a really difficult category that I didn't realize ahead of time. Maybe I should have spent more time thinking about it because of how many bonehead moves happened this year. But I'm actually going over to Bellator, and not because I'm talking to Bellator directly. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry, Bellator intern. I'm not besmirching you. And I'm going to give it to Yoel Romero, because Yoel Romero can't seem to figure out how many rounds are in his fight. And when he was fighting Phil Davis and the third round ended, he had a temper tantrum because he truly believed that the fight was a 5-round fight. And so in the middle of the fight, he goes, "Oh man!" And then afterwards, like, I would have pushed harder if I thought it was a 3-round fight. And just the absolute bonehead. It was the level of Chael Sonnen saying, "I'm tapping," and giving up the round. But Romero was being serious, and Chael was just trolling. And for that to happen, it stood out to me as just you can't be serious. And you go, "Oh no, he's really actually serious." So in a year full of horrible, dumb things and stupid racial comments and idiocy like that, I'm going to give it to a dark horse of Yoel Romero not seeming to know how many rounds are in a fight that he has agreed to, and then claiming that he would have done things differently had he known how many rounds were in the fight. And even if he didn't, why didn't his team go, "Hey, last round, champ, put it on him"? He'd be like, "Wait, hold on, what? Timeout. I thought we had 2 more after this." So yeah,
why didn't Michael C. Williams say this fight is scheduled for 3 rounds? Oh wait, he did.
He did, and I'm pretty sure he said it before the round. It's the 3rd and final round. He does
like
that.
I know that Romero's English is struggle, but dude,
no,
you've been introduced before.
yeah,
So-
yeah. So
And
that's,
like, and no
that's
one,
why-
and like no one ever, like this never came up in conversation with your camp as you're preparing, or
It's
you just
it was
just-
special to me.
like, surprise, surprise.
Exactly,
That
Elia.
is exactly right.
She's right. She's right.
So please remind me of things I had forgotten about this crazy year.
All right, Ben, please pass out your strategery award for 2021.
I'll pick this one. I don't know if it's the worst of the year, though it was certainly a head scratcher at the time, but I like this one because this particular fighter showed us both sides of the coin. One of the worst decisions of the year and one of the best. Felicia Spencer entered the cage against Norma Dumont, arguably no worse than the third best featherweight in the world. Certainly no worse than the third best, like, real featherweight, meaning someone who had never demonstrated that they could make bantamweight, and had gotten there by basically just wrestling and grappling everybody not named Nunes or Cyborg absolutely into the dirt. Against Dumont, that seemed like the most obvious path to victory, and she never even really tried. She just kind of lost a tepid kickboxing match to someone in Dumont who has turned out to actually be quite a good fighter. Has certainly more than made good on what little promise she showed when she showed up in the UFC. But nonetheless, just one of the most baffling game plans I can remember. Like, not a mistake, but just a baffling game plan. But then followed that up with about as clean and lucid and intelligent a retirement as you could imagine. She said, "Okay, whatever I have, it's not quite enough to be the best in the world. And if I can't do that, I'm going to get out of this with my brain cells intact because the paychecks just aren't worth it." So, hat off to Felicia Spencer, and, scratching my head at Felicia Spencer at the same moment.
And not a bad one there. Like, I'm so spoiled for choice to pass out this strategery
There's
award.
so
Like,
many. We could have done a whole show
like,
on this.
yeah,
Go ahead.
seriously. Like, I really want to hand it to whoever at the UFC said that Michael Chandler adopting a black child deserved some sort of Black history acknowledgement on the broadcast. I would that, but I've given that enough airtime. It's pissed me off enough, and and I make enough jokes about it. So we're gonna let that breathe, and I'm sure it will re-enter my brain at some point, and I'll get riled up
In
all
about
over again.
3 weeks.
Yeah. So that's February's
February's
right around the
coming around
corner.
again.
They're going to
Yep,
do it
so-
again. That's the thing. They're going to do it again.
Oh, they're definitely doing it again.
my
Or
God, they're going to do it again.
yeah. So, oh God. But I'm also tempted to give it to Piotr Jan for his very ill-advised knee that lost him the bantamweight title, which somehow and other people are blaming Aljo for this. I don't get it. But I think I'm going to hand it to Marvin Vettori. Because, man, what a bonehead he was at UFC 263. Not only did he put on his shorts backwards for the promotional pictures, which is just beyond hilarity to me, and nobody told him, like, hey, those are
Nobody
backwards.
told him. Nobody said a word, and there were a lot of people that were looking at him. and only him.
Like that is just so savagely funny. But then also also that in the final moments of the fight that he is clearly losing at UFC 263, like there's no way now, despite the fact that he went up there and really thought he won this fight. Um, there's no way anybody with with a nugget of brain matter going on between their skull thinks that he won this fight, right? But then against Vittori, he doesn't have a nugget of brain matter. But in the last seconds, I think it's like 20 seconds or something left on the clock. He's got Izzy against the fence and in the clinch, and he starts hammer fisting his thighs as the clock winds down. I'll repeat that. He is hammer fisting his thighs during a losing fight, a fight that he needs to have a finish. He's got Izzy against the fence, and he unleashes the age-old destroyer known as the hammer fist to the thigh method.
At least he didn't
TKO
stomp his
Charlie
toes.
Horse, 5th
Ooh.
round.
Like, wow. Strategery all the way for Mr. Vittori. I don't know what to say. That was like the funniest thing. That was just genuinely funny. I seriously was like in tears laughing watching that. So yeah, Marvin Vittori gets the strategery award. And I think we're going to give something worse to the people at the UFC who decided that Michael Chandler was some sort of civil rights hero. So,
I feel you.
Michael
Trust me, I
Chandler,
feel
Michael Chandler Jr., the Reverend Michael Chandler Jr. All right, fellas, we're going to move on to the letdown award, and obviously, this is where we are going to express the fight that let us down the most based on our expectations. So, Jay, I'll begin with you again. What earns your letdown award for 2021?
Since I know the obvious one, I'm not going to take that one, and I'm instead going to take a comedy show of a heavyweight fight that I thought actually could legitimately deliver. And I'm not making it up. I'm not making a silly thing like, oh boy, Ben Rothwell, Felipe Lins, that's gonna be fun. No, I was genuinely excited about Alexander Romanov and Juan Espino, because Alexander Romanov is heavyweight that suplexes people and doesn't just do it one time when he's out of gas. This is a guy who can suplex a 265-pound man until the other guy says, no, stop doing that to me. I don't like this anymore. So this was a great style clash against Spanish wrestler and actually Senegalese lamb wrestler, Juan Espino, who is also a brute when it comes to wrestling, tossing people around, and can also lift up 65-pound guys and toss them around like bags of, sand or flour or something. So this had all the makings of one guy is going to be able to savvy the other one, because it's different wrestling approaches. It's different styles that are coming together. So I was truly looking forward to the kind of fight that can come from it. In the Sherdog play-by-play, I called it a King Kong versus Godzilla matchup, just because there's going to be two giant, big, Romanov's nickname King Kong, just two big guys seeing which one can toss the other around. And it did not. It was boring. It was slow. It was exhausting. They kind of took each other down, but you can't remember it as anything exciting. And then when we're finally getting somewhere and we're in the third round, we're all tied up. They're tired. They're still landing shots on each other. Something's going to happen. And Espino blasts Romanov in the groin with a knee. And that's it. And the fight's over. They both fall to the ground. It's a technical decision because it was in the third round. And Romanov got the nod by split decision, which I scored a draw because the first round I gave to Espino, second to Romanov, and the third was a 10-10 because nothing happened in the third round. And we got a disappointing technical decision after a fight that I went, man, so we're going to learn something. That's kind of when I came into this fight going, we're going to learn something. Somebody's going to be a real contender after this fight. And at the end of this fight, neither emerged as a contender. And I felt worse about everybody. And that is my letdown. And I would pass it along to you guys.
All right, Ben, you're up. What's your letdown of 2021?
Is the obvious one that you left on the table Jan versus Sterling?
It is not, but
Jan versus Sterling was the most disappointing fight of the year for me. It was one of my most looked forward to matchups of the year. fantastic style matchup. Sterling's grappling and kicks against Jan's boxing. The fact that Sterling certainly had improved over the course of his career, but Jan was improving so much from fight to fight that I actually favored Sterling going into that fight, but no matter who won, I thought Jan would probably be too much for him in a year or two. I thought this was the perfect time to kind of start off a rivalry, and we got the absolute worst result possible. Even if Jan had just cleanly beaten Sterling, I think there'd be interest in a rematch at some point down the road. Instead, it's just kind of taken a crap on the whole division ever since. And neither of the fighters involved has come out of it looking especially good. So, yeah, what a nightmare. Like, one of the coolest matchups of the year has just turned into kind of a pothole for a division.
All right, not a bad one. I didn't even think about it in those terms, but yeah, that was seeing how that ended did feel kind of empty when it was all over with, especially considering how much we were all looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Now, Jay, I'm gonna throw a question back at you. The one that you didn't want to touch because it's too obvious, was it Jairzinho Rosenstruck and Cyril Gahn?
It was not.
Okay, because that's mine.
Have at it, boys.
Yeah, see that fight was. I wouldn't say it was a bad fight. I'm typically entertained by technical kickboxing matches like that. That is very interesting to me. But when you got two heavyweights who have quite the habit of dislodging their opponents' heads, and they're both strikers, like you're just hoping it's going to be something a little crazier than what it was. But I think that's more of a victim of our expectations as opposed to what was delivered in cage. I think simply Rosenstruck looked flat. I think he just got out there, saw his athletic superior hitting him in ways that he just wasn't able to handle, and he went into a defensive shell from there. And that's something that happens very commonly in any sort of striking based discipline. So that's my letdown, but it's more my fault than theirs.
I'm impressed. We didn't touch on the one the easiest one I thought was the main one was Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker, because that fight promised nonsense, mayhem, catastrophe, and wild looping punches and brawls until somebody falls down. We didn't get any of that. We got pitter patter. We got Johnny Walker at SBG, where Kavanaugh was going, yeah, good work, do more feints, hit him, punch him less, and fake more. What and just an unexciting disappointment of a fight that I had written on my calendar as okay, something dumb is going to happen here, and I am so here for it. And it wasn't even like a tepid kickboxing match. It wasn't like, what do you guys remember about that fight?
It just kind of happened. Yeah, it just happened.
That's exactly it.
But I maybe that didn't make my list because I didn't really expect much from it to begin with. Yeah, because like I'm thinking we all kind of agreed. I remember leading up to that fight, we all kind of agreed we've seen the best of Thiago Santos, and the what was left of his knees from the John Jones fight, that he probably wouldn't be hitting another gear that we haven't seen yet. And Johnny Walker has proven to be kind of a disappointment from a lot of the expectations he had when I believe they shared the same card at UFC 239, where did he knock out Misha Cirkunov there, or was that 235? As I was at both, so it kind of because it kind of blends together since I was at both of them. But I just didn't expect a whole lot, and especially with Johnny Walker at SBG, like a place where careers seem to go to die now. It didn't move me from jump. So when it ended up not being this crazy fight, I wasn't surprised. So yeah. All right, fellas, let's keep things pushing here. We have one more award before we get into.
You're muted again, Ant.
Oops. One more award to hand out before we get into our brief preview of the latest UFC offering to begin 2022's fight calendar. Thanks, Adonis. All right, the Blockbuster Award. What fight card stands above all the others to you? Ben, I'll start with you.
It's less
you
of
can
an
read
obvious...
some options too, please.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, options: UFC 261, UFC 268, UFC 269 are kind of the big ones that seem to get everybody's attention. UFC 261, the entire 5-fight main card were finishes. Knockout of the year contenders Rose Namajunas and Kamaru Usman back to back. UFC 268 and 269 happened like 4 weeks apart, and both were just nuts. Obviously 269 gave us the upset of the year right at the end of the year, gave us a round of the year contender. Yeah, like I'll stray a little bit from those. I covered 2 events live in person last year here in Houston, UFC 262 and UFC 265. UFC 262 was quite the experience. It was one of the UFC's first large full arena events back. It might have been the first one outside of Vegas, or was
Yeah, because 261 was in Vegas.
Yeah, it was the first one outside of Vegas, and it had a lot of the things that kind of reminded me of why I love the sport in the first place.
Time out. Sorry, I'm sorry. 261 was in Jacksonville.
Thank you.
Yes.
VyStar Veterans
VyStar.
Memorial Arena. Thank you.
And not the Tachi Palace.
Not the Tachi Palace. Not Tachi Fight Island with a moat around it. No. All right. Obviously it was the coronation of Charles Oliveira after about the wildest 5 minutes and 19 seconds of fighting you saw all year last year. It had Sherdog submission of the year, Andre Muniz versus over Jacare, which again reminds me why I fell in love with the sport. Like, I think the first pay-per-view I bought with my own money was UFC 44, but Frank Mir snapping Tim Sylvia's arm was when I said, I want to see more of that. It's why Frank Mir was like kind of my first favorite fighter, because I was like, I want to see more of that. I want to see less of the heavyweights that look and fight like Tank Abbott. I want to see dudes that like can do that shit. And being in an arena deafeningly loud, 18,000 people just screaming their heads off, and being able to hear bone snap from 60 feet away, like that was chilling. Like that, that's my most memorable moments of 2021, as a fan and as a media member.
All right, not a bad option there. Jay, what stands out to you?
I'm going to take the easy one, and it kind of helps that I happen to have written this event up for Sherdog's event of the year, which was UFC 268, because it was the event that had a slightly choppy start and then didn't stop. Like, yeah, the first 3 fights, whatever, they do what they do, and then we're going crazy. Like the first big thing was my knockout of the year, Chris Barnett. Doing a spinning wheel kick to drop John Vellante, and things just kept getting more interesting. Knockout. Like the after the first 3 prelims, the rest of the prelims were all knockouts. Like Alex Pereira getting that knockout over Michailidis, Bobby Green snapping a 10-fight decision streak to knock the everything out of Ally Quinta, and then this is something that I shouldn't be proud of, and I didn't even know about it until somebody told me later. I on the broadcast, I very rarely am able to do anything besides write play-by-play because I'm very busy with Sherdog and events and everything like that. But on Twitter, I wrote that Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler is my main event of UFC 268, and apparently that went on the UFC's broadcast. So I'm like, hey, my tweet, I'm eternalized on UFC 268, and that fight was exactly what I wanted it to be, and 10 times more. And when you have a round of the year and a fight of the year, when you have knockout of the year candidates, when you have just shocking results and comebacks and everything back and forth and everything happening except for the fact that I lost power during the Rose Namajunas Weili Zhang fight and had a certain somebody bail me out in that fight. Other than that, just absolutely everything you want in a fight card. When Shane Burgos, Billy Quarantillo would have been a fight of the year contender, like straight up phenomenal back and forth fight, and no one cares because of what they saw the fight beforehand. You got something special. So 268 got my call. We got a lot of questions answered. What happens when Kamaru Usman fights somebody that can last him, take his power, keep going, and give it back to him? What happens when Rose Namajunas can't land the kill shot really quickly? What happens when Frankie Edgar's mouth meets a foot? All those kinds of things. We learned about this, and it was everything I wanted it to be. So I got to give it that.
I find it difficult to disagree with both, options provided. I mean, quite frankly, we had a lot of really good events this year, even though we even complain about the frequency of the schedule and all that. But man, it was some bangers.
I'm sorry, Ann. I didn't even mention Chris Curtis.
Getting
his first UFC win by KO. Anyway, carry on.
But you know what? Just like last year, my pick last year was based on the moment and how it represented a lot of the year. For that reason, I'm going to pick UFC 261. The first fight back at the arenas and with a full crowd, and also sort of there were so many moments on that card. A lot of it had to do with the demographics of Florida, that wonderful place filled with wonderful people, and the idea of putting the American fighters versus the Chinese fighters, and how the Chinese fighters got swept and the crowd was going nuts for it, and they were just back for UFC action all together. I mean, that first fight, the Ariane Carnelossi win, like, I've never heard the first fight of a card have that much pop in the arena.
It was bonkers.
It was insane. So and the crescendo just built up and built up and built up. So by the time you get to Rose Namajunas flatlining Weili Zhang with one quick non-switch lead leg kick, and then you get to the Florida Civil War between Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal, like the roof of that arena seemed like it was going to explode. So UFC 261 is my event of the year. So, and it just represented so much in addition to providing a really fantastic moments.
And
All right,
Ariane
folks.
Carnelossi is the official protein snack of UFC.
Oh my God.
All right, gentlemen. So, as we said before, 2022 fight schedule is off to a start this Saturday. Giga Chikadze has a big opportunity versus Calvin Kattar in the main event. Quick predictions. Who you got?
I have Chikadze by something nasty. I'm done. I'm done doubting the guy. It's not just that he's passing each obstacle ahead of him. He's blowing through them in a way that makes us feel silly for even thinking it was going to be a challenge. Like the last time I remember a fighter like this on the way up, John Jones, Ciryl Gane, like those type of guys where each next logical test just looks silly in hindsight, until they reach the top. And I'm kind of there with Chikadze.
All right, Jay, what say you?
I feel I was leaning towards Chikadze up until this past week. And then Chikadze was trying to chime in to talk about fighting Volkanovski next. And he was saying, here's my scenario. I'm going to beat Kattar. I'm going to fight for the title. And as soon as he started saying that, I thought he's looking past Kattar. He's looking past a guy who's never been knocked out. And he has been hit with like baseball bats. He's been hit with bowling balls. He's been hit with just everything you could ask for and not gone down. Now, granted, Giga Chikadze hits the body, and we know Max Holloway hit Calvin Kattar 290 times in the head. That's my other stat of the week. So maybe Chikadze works the body and does his Giga kick, which is just a friggin' liver kick. Maybe if he does that and works the body, maybe he can do something. But he looked past Calvin Kattar, and I don't think that's a good idea in a 5-round fight. I think Kattar's the kind of guy who can build two. And he is sturdy. He's in your face. He's not going to let you take a back step. And he's not going to let you get into kickboxing range. Like, he's not the kind of guy who's going to stand there for long and be like, yeah, you can kick my lead leg. I don't care. Whatever. He'll take a couple shots and he'll come at you. Like Shane Burgos had success. I was actually in the building for that fight card. He had some success, and then Kattar started pushing on the gas, and Burgos had to back away. Now, I said that Barboza was going to outkick him, but he didn't do that. And Cub Swanson was going to be fine, but Cub Swanson got his liver rearranged. But I think Calvin Kattar is a different animal. I think he's just too darn durable. I don't think Giga's going to be the first guy to do the job. I'm saying Calvin Kattar. I'm going to go by decision, but I would not be surprised if he gets like a late round finish in the third round with strikes after Chikadze he puts everything he has into it, and it's not putting him down, and Kattar turns things around.
I'm going to go with Giga on this one for a couple of reasons. First off, I'm not sure what version of Calvin Kattar we're going to see, because the beating he took from Max Holloway is a life changer that literally can change the course of your life.
Yeah.
Now, I do love the fact that he took a full year off. Like this, he took an entire year off before making his return to the octagon. And that's the way to do it after you've taken, that many strikes to the head. But even still, a fresh version of Kattar, I'm not sure his style translates very well against someone like Giga. Giga, I think, is more than capable of point fighting you, and just hitting you and just being content with that and just winning a point fight style decision. But at the same time, man, Kattar is not going to accept that. But I think that's just going to open more opportunities because, as we know, Kattar is more known for his hands. Like he's a damn good boxer. In order to box a kickboxer, you've got to go through kicks. You've got to eat kicks on the way in, and I'm not sure if he's ready to eat those kicks. And if he does eat those kicks and finds his way just purely within boxing range, Giga's no slouch with the hands either. This is a guy with high level kickboxing experience, meaning his hands are there too. So it just seems like a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing for Kattar, and that just plays in Giga's favor way too well. I believe he's going to get a finish probably late. I'd say fourth roundish. I think the body shots will wear away, and that's going to cause the whole tower to crumble. So give me Giga for the win in that. All right, fellas. So that's going to do it for the second edition of the Living Death Show. Big thanks to Ben. Big thanks to Jay for holding it down every single week. Remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend and tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.
Wow.